All right. I think you can hear me now. Thanks, Ezgi, for the introduction. So, yeah, we're going to talk about OKRs versus strategy and understand if we can have OKRs before a strategy or without having a strategic plan. So, my name is Omid. I have been doing consulting, coaching, training basically my whole career, and have worked with over 100 companies worldwide on OKRs, trained a few thousand people on it. And I'm really happy that I can talk to you about this subject again this year. So, this is the agenda for my talk. So first, I'm going to discuss the differences between OKRs and strategy and how they connect, and then talk about the challenges we'll face if you don't have a strategy before implementing OKRs. What would be the ideal scenario, and then what's the reality that most of the time, unfortunately, we hit, and then what would be the solutions to that reality. So, okay. So first off, you have to know that we don't have like a very standard definition or a strategy. If you Google it, there are so many of them. But the best one, like at least my customized definition, is a strategy is something to positions you in the long term to win. Okay, or the translation could be sustainable competitive advantage. Essentially, strategy is a lot of choices, decisions, trade-off, etc., that you make at a high level, very comprehensive, to know which routes you're going to take and how you're going to achieve your vision. And it's typically at the top of the organization or business units or verticals or geographies. And the strategy takes a lot of time and resources because you have to do a lot of analysis, collect data, involve a lot of your people, maybe employ third-party companies, consultants. Maybe you need to do market research. You have to monitor the trends. So there's a lot going on, and that's why many strategy efforts fail, because it takes a long time to come up with a strategy. And in today's world, by the time you have the strategy, it's already too late. Things have changed, okay, which is like a separate discussion. Now, talking about OKRs, so OKRs is actually very agile, very lean, and it focuses on the short term, typically 3 months, maybe 4 months. There are exceptions like 6 months, 1 year, 2 months, etc., but mostly it's 3 to 4 months, the cycles. And it is really a strategy execution framework. It's goal setting, it's prioritization for the short term, and you want to focus only on the top priorities. It's not as comprehensive as a strategy, right? Also, it is both top-down and bottom-up, and you can set them at set the OKRs at different levels. Now, a big difference, another big difference between OKRs and strategy is that OKRs can totally change cycle to cycle. You may reset all of your OKRs. I mean, you have the option, right? And it's not wrong. But with this strategy, when you come up with a strategy in the short term, like every 3 months, 6 months, etc., you adjust it, you calibrate it. You don't, replace your whole strategy every 3 months or 6 months. And of course, there are more differences. But how they connect? So I thought a lot about this to come up with a very simple answer. Then the answer is actually a question, which I wrote under connection. So given our strategy, so given where we're going to go and how we're going to achieve our vision and all of those goals and priorities, etc., and where we are today, our current situation, whether we are ahead, whether we are behind, our resources, our human resources, health, culture, all this stuff, our cash flow, etc. Like, what should our OKRs be for the short term? What should we focus on in the short term in order to support our long-term strategy? Now, note that both of them are adaptive, which is the theme of this year's OKR Summit, right? Both of them can and need to be adjusted. The timelines, of course, differs. The amount of changes you make could differ, but both of them are really adaptive and include things like prioritization. You have to make hard decisions. Both of them include this. Both of them have goal settings, metrics, targets, and of course, both of them have execution or initiatives, actions, etc. So that's that. And to better understand it, so we typically have a mission or purpose and a vision for a company. And then under that, you have the strategy layer. And this strategy layer will tell you, okay, in order to achieve the vision, what are the decisions or pillars or teams or priorities, goals, etc. Once you have that, it would be very easy to come up with the short-term OKRs, your objective, your key results, and the action plans or initiatives that you need in order to achieve your key result targets. Now, of course, by now you understand that, as many experts say as well, you first should have a strategy, okay, and then implement OKRs, right? Which is like classic textbook, and is of course a true statement. Let's talk about the challenges that you will face if you don't do that, right? So if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have vision, if you don't know where you're going in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, etc., what would happen if you implement OKRs? So the first thing that you will face is called confusion. People would be very confused when they want to set OKRs. They don't know what to set, how to prioritize. Should we focus on this? Should we focus on that? Should we go this direction, that direction? So there's tons of confusion, right? So you really don't know what OKRs to set to begin with. Then there is the misalignment. Even if you set some OKRs, chances are later on you figure out, the company should go that way, but our OKRs are taking us this way, right? Also, there could be misalignments inside the organization between different business units, verticals, departments, functions, etc. And all of these will create a big resistance in your people, right? Because they're confused, they're misaligned, they don't know why you're setting, such OKRs. So you will lose that buy-in, and people would really resist, which is a recipe for failure, of course. Then there's the instability, meaning that because you don't have that overarching layer of a strategy, you have to change your OKRs because, like one day you think, okay, the company is going this way, you set these OKRs. Next month, somebody says, oh no, we should go that way. Then you have to change your OKRs again. So your OKRs would be frequently changed and would be unstable. And lastly, the OKRs will obviously fail. The reason is because none of it works, and people will blame it on the framework. People say, "Oh, OKRs is a bad thing," but at least as of now, after seeing so many successful stories with OKRs around the world, we know that the framework is a really solid framework if you implement and use it right. Okay, so you really don't want to fail, and then because if OKRs fail in a company, chances of you being able to do it again and basically repair that damage is very slim. Now, let's get to the ideal scenario I talked to you about. So ideally, you want to have a strategic plan, which is well-defined. It includes all the key elements. You have your mission, vision, maybe a strategy map, some pillars or teams, your priorities, your KPIs, your initiatives. So you want to make sure you have it all. And it's approved by the board or the founders or the CEO or whoever is in charge of that. And also you have buy-in from stakeholders, which is typically a tough one, right? Because if you don't have the buy-in from stakeholders, chances are that some of them, again, resist, or some of them don't really support OKRs and your strategy, of course. Also, the strategy should be robust and comprehensive enough. You have to consider every different aspect of your business, internal, external, etc. Yet it should be concise. We have all seen, like 200 pages of strategy, and even if you really want to know it and understand it, you can't, because it's just too long, too detailed, etc. So it should also be concise. Then it should be updated and calibrated frequently, at least every 3 months. Or maybe 6 months, right? Otherwise, it would be outdated and there's no use to it. Now, the next one is to make sure that the strategy should be documented and accessible, meaning that the people in the company, the staff, your colleagues, whenever they need to, they can refer to that document, they can search, they can find the answer. And also, you want to make sure that once all of the above is done, the strategy is communicated and clarified for everyone, and it's being monitored and tracked, right? So I guess by now you would understand that in reality, having all of these checked is really difficult, right? And then therefore we hit the reality, right? So the reality is, like maybe I can give you a percentage, but a lot of the companies don't really have the ideal scenario. Like when I work with clients, rarely can I like if I ask them, hey, do you have a strategy? Rarely does it happen that say, yes, we have a strategy, it's documented, it's updated, it has everything. This is the executive summary, these are the priorities, these are the goals, these are the initiatives, etc. And it's concise enough, and it has been communicated, it's approved. Most of the time it's just some documents scattered around in the company. So you have to put them together and make sense of them, and ask for the updates. And then there are new stuff in the minds of founders and C-levels and leadership team that are not reflected there. So the reality is actually very dark. And then what happens is that the companies would say, okay, yeah, we understand that we don't have the ideal scenario, we don't have the strategy we wanted to, yet we really need alignment, we need focus, we need to set goals. We don't have anything. This happens all the time, especially with tech startups or the companies that are rapidly growing and scaling. Now, in such cases, of course, textbook answer could be, oh, I'm sorry, you can have go and do your strategy first and come back. And they don't like it, and they're right, because having no priority, no focus, nothing to align and unite people is really bad. Having something which is not optimal is much better than having nothing. Okay, that's why the solution, there is actually one solution to it. So let's review the scenario. Scenario one is that, hey, ideal scenario, you have the strategy, it includes everything, checks all the boxes in that slide. Okay, you're good to go. You can set your OKRs based on this strategy. That's scenario one. Scenario two is that you're in the middle of completing your strategy, coming up with it, or it just needs updates, or maybe a couple of those boxes are not checked, you need to do those, and it takes 1 month or 2 months. Then the recommendation typically is, hey, okay, go get that done, get done with your strategy, and then start OKRs. But the third scenario is typically, hey, we don't have it, or it's not updated, and it will take us at least a few months to do it, but we need OKRs today, and how can you help me? That's what the client said. Now, in such cases, what I do, like my solution is that I work with the companies, do some maybe workshops, etc., to help them come up with the top priorities and the directions they want to go, at least for the next 6 to 12 months. So if they know that, okay, at least this year in 2024, by end of it, we want to do such and such, these are our priorities, these are our targets, etc., then it will give them the minimum they need to know in order to set some OKRs. Again, you can argue that it's not optimal. Yes, I know it's not the best way, it's not ideal, but given the reality that we see every day, this is actually a viable solution. Now, once you work on the next 6 to 12 months, then you can come up with your OKRs for the first cycle. And remember, first cycle is a learning cycle, okay? And then you can pilot, you can just teach people how to do OKRs. The content in the first cycle is not that important. Many companies may fail the first cycle anyway. Once you do your first cycle, in parallel, you can work on your strategy. So once the first cycle is completed, then you also have the strategy. You have a good 3 months to do that. Then you can do the next cycle. In that way, you have already learned in cycle one how to do OKRs, the process, etc. You probably have improved on it. And then you have done your strategy. So your second cycle could be a really good one based on the strategy and based on your learnings from the first cycle. Now, there could be some exceptions. For example, if you're a earlier stage startup, still trying to figure out what your business model is, or how to achieve product market fit, chances are you don't have a strategy, and you cannot even have it because you still don't know your mission and vision, because you don't know your business model, etc. So chances are you don't have a strategy, but at least you know what your top priorities are for the next 2 months, 3 months, etc. And based on that, maybe you can set some OKRs. I've seen that in practice. Some really love it. Some say, no, it's too early. But anyway, there are some exceptions to this whole strategy before OKRs thing. Okay, that was it. I think we have a couple of minutes. Are there any questions? I think there are no questions. I'll wait in the chat, so if there are any questions, Neil, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Omid. Meanwhile, we're checking the questions as well for you, but so far no questions. So, thank you so much for the summary. It's, what you said about, like, it's not the methodology that fails, but it's maybe the system is not eligible, or maybe we haven't set the scene good enough yet. So we have to be patient and make sure that all the scene is ready for trying OKR, as you said. So I think that was a very good point. So I understand that not every company should try OKRs unless they have made the preparations we've been talking about. So great. Thank you so much for your participation. We got used to seeing you in OKRx Summit, so you're a familiar face for us as well. So I hope you're enjoying it. Yep. And now we'll be moving forward. Just for last minute question: do you have any specific idea on how to evaluate the first circle? That there is a question for you, and you have a minute to answer it if you like.
Sorry, what was the question? How to?
Do you have any specific idea on how to evaluate the first circle, probably the first cycle?
Oh, how to evaluate the first cycle? Okay, there are a bunch of things, but that you can check. So of course, there are some health metrics for your OKRs implementation to see how it is. I mean, I cannot really explain all of them in 1 minute. But the important thing is to leverage the check-ins, reviews, and retros that you have during the cycle to get a health check, to get people's feedback, to collect lessons learned, and understand how you're doing, how people feel about it. You can actually ask them. You can do surveys, and then as a coach or as a champion or a sponsor, you can also check and see, for example, are you following the best practices? Are people on time in launching their OKRs, setting them? Are they updating them before you check in? Are they attending the check-in? So there are a bunch of stuff that you can check. Are the key results measurable, outcome-based, etc. And over time, just improve them.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.